weirdos.
Weird science is the revolution. Weird science is the revolution.
Ultimate Black Panther #1, written by Brian Hill, art by Stefano Caselli, colors by David Coriel, letters by VC's Corey Petit. So jumping into this, we had no idea how they were going to play this out. The maker ended up taking away the heroes. But what does that mean to the king of Wakanda? Mm-hmm. It's weird. People have mentioned to me, well, what would that mean to, say, a Thor who's a god? You know, you can squash a spider, but how do you squash Wakanda? Well, what it seems that they have done is kind of put them under the heel, or maybe kind of being controlled by what ends up being Ra and Khonshu. And of course, you hear Khonshu and you think of Moon Knight. Moon Knight's name is spelled out. We don't know exactly what is fully going on, but how we start this off is you're in West Africa. You have some guys working in the mines, it looks like, and they just get attacked by this army of what looks like robot cyborgs being led by Khonshu and Ra, two, they say, brothers in black and white suits. Pretty cool visual. We don't really know exactly what that means fully. Me and you were discussing it before we started, wondering what is happening, how this is going. But I think we have to kind of lay low and wait to see what is going on. But I liked it. It's one of those where when you get this Ultimate stuff, especially after the Spider-Man, you do end up, you want to see, who's going to pop up? How are they going to pop up? But also trying to figure out this overall mystery. But as I alluded to,
they're pretty bad. I mean, they come in there and they vaporize these guys. So and they're completely innocent.
At one point later, we can't figure out, but we think that they are mad that a kid's playing soccer. I mean, to kill a kid is crazy, right? So you have that craziness there. And pretty evil. That's a great way to set up an evilness. And what you're going to play off is Wakanda in the Ultimate deal. This is Wakanda with the sealed borders. They don't want to get involved in the outside deal, but the outside troubles are going to find their way inside of Wakanda to force the hand. I don't really know why you would do that, why you want to poke Wakanda the way that they seem to be doing it, but we'll have to see. But what I said earlier and what I meant by it, me and you were both talking how much we like the idea. If you say you read the Ultimate Spider-Man, and most people liked it, but maybe you're like, well, I don't really understand what's going on. They're talking about this maker stuff. I don't really get it. I kind of was left behind a little. That's not here. Like this really, to me, and you said it feels just like a Black Panther issue. It just feels like a cool Black Panther issue. It feels a lot like what would be in the movie, realm of things.
Yeah, it's very cinematic how they do things in this.
I don't think that you really need to know that much going in. If you have basic concept of Wakanda, T'Challa, Shuri.
If anybody's watched the movie or both movies, they would have no problem with this at all.
And what I said to you after reading it, I actually realized, because I started mainly reading Marvel in 2018 with the Fresh Start. That whole deal. And since then, there hasn't been a really great Black Panther book. Not at all. Again, it was funny because when I started, and I spelled it out back then, I've said it a lot of times since, I started the whole podcast because that forces me. I wanted to read more Marvel. So I'm like, okay, if I say I'm going to do a podcast, I'll have to. And I did catch up on things and I read a bunch of stuff going. But really what I wanted to do was read and review Spider-Man. Read and review, say, Fantastic Four. Captain America was a big one. Fantastic Four. And
Avengers.
Black Panther was a big one. I didn't like any. It really was a struggle. Like Avengers, that was the Jason Aaron stuff that I didn't like. The Cap stuff with Ta-Nehisi Coates and the Black Panther in space, not really into it. So we're finally getting it. It took years and years, but finally I'm actually getting some of these books coming through. Finally. And I think that this is one of the better issues of Black Panther I've read that has come out while I'm reading it. I'm not saying this is the best of all time. You know what I mean? I'm not saying this is better than Christopher Priest stuff or any. I'm saying that sitting here as it comes out, reading and reviewing it, I think that this is probably my favorite Black Panther issue since I started reading and doing podcasts with Marvel. It's really good. Mm-hmm. And I think that the best part of it is by the end, I sat there and I'm like, you really just got started. Like it's really good, but it feels like it could be even bigger and better going forward. So I am excited. But you see this village just gets slaughtered, people rounded up, and you do end up seeing a couple guys in the, in the trees watching this. We find out they're spies. I actually thought this might be T'Challa. I thought maybe, because we don't know what's going on, I thought maybe Wakanda isn't quite what it is.
Maybe his dad is still in charge or something.
Yeah, something like that. But these are actually spies. And then we do go to Wakanda and we get to see T'Challa. T'Challa's the king of Wakanda, so that's set. He's married to Okoye, who is the queen. So you have that. You're like, oh, that's cool. Separate beds.
I do. No, I like that kind of.
It feels like it's like old
room,
school sitcom, right? What they should have is you need another bed, the get busy bed.
Yeah,
you
right
know what
in the
I
middle.
mean? Or do they sit there and like, hey, you want to come over to my bed tonight? Like, you need something, because it is weird they have two pillows.
Two giant beds.
Like, holy moly. But yeah, they are separated. It just reminded me of, what is this? Leave It to Beaver? Leave It to Wakanda?
All those old sitcoms.
Yeah, so you end up where T'Challa, who's built, when he gets up and looks over Wakanda, he's having nightmares. He's trying to figure out what this is. And again, the cool things of things popping up, like Okoye there as the queen. And then you find out very quickly, because T'Challa goes to talk about these nightmares with his father. His father's alive. Like, oh, that's cool. T'Chaka's there. And he was former king. He stepped down. Now T'Challa's king, but he obviously goes to his father for advice. And the big advice is to go talk to the Voodoo Khan, who is like the idea of the spiritual magic kind of voodoo type deal, which fits the name. And T'Challa doesn't like it. He says, I don't like them. Almost like, hey, I don't like to talk to them witches. What up, witches? But he wants to figure out things more in a realistic type of way and seems to want to maybe push away from those sort of traditions. But he does go to talk to them. And again, a lot of this stuff is just like setting up things. He does go to talk to and goes to the temple of Voodoo Khan just to say, hey, I've been having these dreams. And you have what is Matron Amala kind of say, you got to be wary of this. You got to come talk to us. We can counsel you. And he's kind of like wary of that. But they set up this whole deal of the Voodoo Khan. You don't really get the idea that they're like on the up and up fully. Like you're wary of them, and maybe this is part of this overall
kind of like
mystery.
If you buy into them fully, they kind of control you in some kind of way.
Yeah, and he doesn't want to do that. So when we do get to the end and we talk about Moon Knight / Ra / the whole deal, Khonshu, this might be part of the manipulation to them. I like this. You end up very quickly, but pretty good, set up some intrigue, some political kind of stuff. But to me, why I like it, it's comic book political stuff. And people will argue about politics being in comics all the time. I agree, they have been. But I like comic booky politics that makes sense for that thing. I don't need, rip from the pages of the front news now for Wakanda. I like this. I thought that it played out.
Yeah, and also they make T'Challa seem very intelligent, and also, he's skeptical about things. He'll listen to you, but he's going to form his own opinions.
It's pretty good.
It's very well
There's a
written
line coming up that we like. And what Brian Hill does, like you said, he's a smart guy, but he knows he's king, and he's going to listen to people. He taught, his dad's giving him advice, telling him what to do, and T'Challa, he doesn't, oh, yes, father, that. He's like, I'm king. He says it later,
He says,
too.
I'm king, but you're still my father, so I'm always going to listen to you.
And he's going to take advice from him. And he's smart enough to go to the Voodoo Khan to maybe see what they can tell him, but it's not like he's going to go 100% in with it. He, like you said, he's skeptical, but he's smart enough to get people's advice, but he's not going to form any opinion based on just one person.
Nope.
And I like that. And it comes into play coming up in a thing that's funny. Two times, I think, because one, actually, he throws back at Shuri. But all this going on, and you do understand at that point that Wakanda, their borders are sealed. It's at that kind of tipping point. Should we open the borders? Should we check things? It seems like as we go that Shuri kind of wants to open them up and see what's going on outside more, but T'Challa doesn't know yet. And when we go to the deal, some people, classic people, are going to take advantage of the idea that Wakanda looks like they're afraid or looks like they don't want to help anybody, but it seems a little different than how it really is. But what happens is those spies that we saw at the beginning, they come to tell T'Challa what they saw. We ended up seeing this army. They end up ripping through villages. They're killing people. And then they start to, it's so funny. They start to say what they think T'Challa should do. T'Challa looks and is like, hey, thank you, but yeah, I don't need to take advice from you.
Yeah, I take information from spies, but not strategy. You are dismissed.
Sayonara, and dismisses them.
Yeah, you're spies. You're not like a tactician or something. You're just a strategist.
I
You're
like
a spy.
what he says. Yeah, I don't need strategy from you. And they leave. I like, too, like, I think Brian Hill gets the whole play because Shuri is upset at what T'Challa just did. But she waits for those guys to leave. She's not going to say it while they're there to make the king look bad, even if it is just her brother. These guys leave, and then she says, you know those guys? And it makes it seem like Shuri is more of the girl of the people, because while T'Challa's just like, hey, I don't need strategy from spies, she actually mentions them by name and says, Foxel and Anon would die for you. They would not lie. And T'Challa just says, who said that I thought they were lying? I believe what they said. I just don't need them to tell me what to do. I'm king. And then even a little bit later, she says, Father would do this. And he says, well, I'm the king. Father isn't. And has to remind her. And it does play off because when Shuri goes off then, it seems like she might be a bit of a loose cannon.
Yeah, a little bit, which is good. It's fine.
I like Shuri a lot. One of my favorite characters. I don't know. I'm getting a weird play with her here that she might end up overstepping some boundaries and might cause some problems, even if she doesn't mean to, because of all the things going on.
Depends on what her relationship is with, what's his name at the end there.
Yeah, the Killmonger and stuff. And we'll go with that because what ends up happening again is that T'Challa he's worried because he's having nightmares that things are going bad. And you could go with these nightmares even playing off the idea that this world was kind of manipulated and made by the Maker. It seems like there is a bunch of people in the Kingdom of Wakanda and people have their own ideas. And that's where I get worried. I get worried with Shuri, and so we'll see how that plays out. At this point, I liked it. Then it picks up. And it's so crazy because Killmonger showing up, I think, really, like, it makes
puts it over the
that
top.
much better, right?
It does, yeah.
You see these soldiers we saw at the beginning, this poor kid's just playing soccer and they're going to kill him. It's not even like they push past him to kill everybody else in this village.
They're taking everybody out.
Kid falls down to his knees. He's crying. And then you get a splatter of blood and then you pull out and Killmonger has destroyed every one of them. He looks awesome. You know right away it's Killmonger. You're like, oh my God, that's great. And you end up, Killmonger says, hide, more are coming. This kid goes and you end up having this, big spaceship-like thing coming down to attack Killmonger, and he says, my love, bless them, and all of a sudden you get lightning that just rips through this deal, and I'm like, okay, right away, you have to think Storm.
I did, immediately, yeah.
You're like, oh my God, Storm, as Wind Rider, which is a cool little callback to a story where Kitty Pryde ended up having a make-believe subconscious story in her head where Storm was Wind Rider, and the idea of that was that any story you come up with ends up bringing characters to life in other dimensions and Elseworlds type things. So it's kind of a neat little play. You don't really see exactly.
No, it's just a silhouette.
I mean, I think it is. And it's kind of a cool play that, what's different, what's not. And
she could be still pretty raw. I mean, she could be coming from Egypt, I guess is where she's from, and Africa. So,
well, remember, that's the thing that I like, the idea where Storm, without the X-Men, because the X-Men are going to be different because of what happened.
She's a goddess.
Yeah, so there you go. So without the Charles Xavier School and that sort of X-Men, you have a Storm that looks like just as what she is here. We'll see. Like I said, we might end up where it's a big twist and we look like idiots, but that's what it seems. But Killmonger going around with Storm to protect people from Ra and Khonshu, pretty neat. And even says to the people of this village, they just saved the village. We already saw a village just get ripped apart. And so they say, listen, people of the village, we are here to protect you. Your gods and hidden kingdoms will not. Wouldn't you end up, going with the people who are actually going to go out and try to help you and protect you? So it's a really cool play. And that picked up for me the entire book. I was like, okay, this is cool.
It's an interesting take on Killmonger. He goes off to the U.S., I guess, and does his thing and then comes back. But this is he's just staying in Africa, protecting Africa, which is cool.
So it's a really neat twist, and that's the stuff that I'm interested in. But it works out even more here because it is Wakanda. and Black Panther, how things go. And Wakanda itself and Black Panther don't seem that much different. So it's going to be more of the world around them and what they mean to it. So I really like it. But then you end up having the celebration of life. There's T'Challa. He's addressing the nation. You have his father behind him in a ceremonial deal. He's on a throne, but it's that ceremonial deal of a former king. And you have like an attendant there with them. And of course, you can't have everything and eat your cake too here.
Yeah.
You have it that this attendant is there.
Why aren't they checking this attendant before? Who is this person?
Well, check what's under the hood.
Why is she up there?
Don't know. Seems like she might have been like there to make sure that T'Chaka was on.
They should have had her like in a scene before hanging out, they were talking to her.
Just have her be that full attendant because T'Chaka's so old. That's his nurse or something. Mm-hmm. Just spell it out because they don't seem to have checked anything here. But is it a play where, we could talk all. Is it that they think they're so safe with the borders closed that there couldn't possibly be a suicide bomber that would be right there? But please, you got to check things. So he's addressing the nation, and he's already talked about the idea that he is worried that, there might be conflict, and he doesn't want to even think that people are against him. There's that little tension. It is going on. But a suicide bomber right there on the platform with him and his dad. And reveals it and says, for Ra, for Khonshu. And yeah, his dad, though, dad's a hero.
Yeah.
His dad leaps out of that throne and pushes T'Challa off the platform as it blows up. He turns into Black Panther as he's falling with it's awesome.
Imagine falling from that and looking up and seeing that explosion, how crazy that is.
You see his dad's burning body. If you really want to be sure that he's dead, it is a shame that you do have to have T'Chaka die, but it works. That's what you get. And also, in a universe that doesn't quite have these superheroes, you are getting, some little bits of these, origin stories. Here's T'Challa, who now is going to just all out war on Moon Knight. I liked it. I liked it a lot, and I'm excited. What would you give this?
I'm going really high. I'm going to go 9.5. I liked it a lot.
I'm going 9 just because I'm waiting to see how it is, but I like it.
You're right. I'm charged up only because it's been such a long time since a good Black Panther comic, and I just want to read the next issue already. And it's been a while since that's happened.
Weird science is the revolution.